All right, it's here, section 505, our last section on the Pro Advisor exam. I believe the next one I'm going to do is payroll. All right, so here are the topics that we're covering in section 5: subscriptions, upgrades and downgrades, users, client requests, accountant tools, and year-end procedures. So with subscriptions, the easiest way to check client subscription levels is to hover over the QB icon in Clients menu when you're in the QuickBooks Online Accountant screen, or this, and when you do that, it reveals this client page right here. And it reveals the client's QuickBooks Online and online payroll subscription plans and shows if they're not active. While the client list can give a quick glance at the client subscription levels, you can find more details about client billing information from the subscription and billing screen, which is accessible from the gear icon. So you go to gear icon, and then right under company, you will see subscription and billings, and then you'll see a more detailed list. So this screen organizes the clients into different tabs according to their payment methods. So you have the accountant billed subscription tab, and that shows the subscription status and the QBO subscription level for the client, whose subscription costs you pay. You will see the current estimated monthly total and details of previous bills and payments. Then you have the client billed subscription tab, which shows the subscription status and the QBO subscription level of clients who paid their own subscription costs directly to Intuit. And then the last one is the revenue share payouts tab, is where you sign up for the revenue share program and track payout details once enrolled. In addition, the billing detail tab provides an overview and a monthly breakdown of your QBO and payroll subscription charges on behalf of your clients. You can also update your payment details, which we cover later. All right, if you and your client decide that you should change the subscription level, there's a few things that you're going to want to discuss with them first. First, features. Downgrading means losing some of the features that your client currently has in the plan that they have. So remember when you did your meet and greet and you talked about all the things that they're looking for. After they get started, they might say, well, I feel like this is costly and I feel like, I might want to downgrade and go to the next level below. However, one of the things you need to make sure they understand that in Plus and Advanced, there's certain things that they're not going to get if they go below that. So you want to make sure that you show them that comparison chart, and it's provided in the training section, and go through exactly what features they're going to lose by downgrading. The other thing they want to take into consideration are third-party apps. Changing a plan might affect some third-party apps that have connected to their subscription level. This happens when the new plan doesn't support the feature the client app works with. Review each affected client app by selecting Apps in the left-hand navigation pane, and then selecting Client App tabs. The last one is Plan Discounts. Downgrades will remove all discounts of current plans. However, downgrading on the revenue share program doesn't remove your payouts. If your client downgrades or upgrades their subscription during the first paid 12 months, your payout will be adjusted accordingly. If you pay the client subscription plan, you can only change their subscription from QuickBooks Online Accountant. To do this, you'll navigate to that subscription and billing screen that we talked about from the gear icon, and then you would select Accountant Build Subscription tab, and from the option in the Action column to the right, you would select either Downgrade or Upgrade. Then choose the preferred subscription plan and follow the on-screen steps to complete the process. If the client pays their own subscription themselves, you or they can upgrade their subscription plan from their company file. To do that, you would navigate to the accountant settings, which is in the gear icon. You would go to the billing and subscription tab, choose the preferred option, and downgrade the plan. Sometimes a client's payment must be changed. If you pay for your client subscription, you can update the payment method from the Billings Detail tab that we just talked about. Here it is, Billing Details tab in the Subscription and Billings screen. And then you would go to Edit Billing Information. So you would select this link if you need to change their payment method. If the client pays for their subscription, they have to navigate to the Accountant Settings from the gear icon, and then go to Billings and Subscription tab, and then they would select the pencil icon and then change the payment method. Another place to look at when deciding whether to upgrade or downgrade is the usage tab in the accountant settings. So you go to the gear icon, accountant settings, and then you'll see the usage tab. Click on that, and it will give them a list of all their usage limits, like their billable users, their chart of account, and their classes and locations. So before making any adjustments, ask them, if you're happy with this, I would stay at this subscription level. Well, here are some questions you might see here. If your client needs to upgrade their subscription and you pay for the subscription, what steps would you take from your QBOA account to upgrade that client? You'd go to the gear icon, subscription and billing, and then go to the account and build subscription, go to the action, and select upgrade. When downgrading a client subscription, what will be affected as a result of the downgrade? Well, we talked about the apps, the features, and most importantly, all discounts will be removed. What 2 ways to check a client subscription level in QBOA? One way is by looking at the client lists, and that is hovering over the QB icon or clicking on it. And then the other one is from subscription and billing screen in the gear icon. Managing users. So the team menu in QBOA allows you to manage your firm's users. A firm user can be anyone that needs access to clients' data. They can be full-time employees of your accounting business, but they could also be tax preparers who are not part of your team but still need access to the client data. The team menu has 2 tabs. The Access tab displays an overview of each user's status and access rights. Then there's a Certification tab, and that allows you to track users' Pro Advisor certifications and their expiration dates. Apart from the primary admin, who has access to everything, there are 3 levels of access you can give firm users: full access, basic access, and custom access. I have them described here if you want to take notes. The team menu makes it easy to manage users' permissions. To add a new user, you would select Add User button, or to manage the permissions of an existing user, you would select Edit from the action column. When adding a user, you will first input their name, email address, and job title in the first tab. The second tab is where you select the user's access level or modify each setting. You can see detailed information about each row by hovering over the lines on the left. The right-hand side of the screen gives a summary of the different access options. The last tab is where you select which client the user has admin access to. This is only visible to your firm users. Clients are not going to see the name of users you've access to their company files. Note that while you can customize the level of access each user has to your firm, you can't customize the level of access to clients' files. That means they will see everything, including the client's payroll. Is this a question here? No. Okay, still information. The team menu allows you to manage users, but you need to go to the clients menu to manage lead administrators. So the clients menu in QBOA is a hub for all your clients' information, even those who don't use QBO. So we were just talking about managing your users for your firm. But let's say you want to manage the leads for your clients. To do that, you would have to go through the client menu. Through the left-hand navigation, you just click on clients. And there you would see the over tab list has columns that display the following information: banking, payroll alerts, prep for taxes, tax returns, lead, and actions. To manage the lead accountant assigned to a client, you would select the filter icon and then edit leads. So they went over how to manage your users and how to manage lead users for your clients. So here's some questions you might see here. What are the 3 types of user permissions you can choose from in QuickBooks Online Accountant when adding new team members to your firm? You can either choose from full, basic, or custom access users. What things can you do from the Teams menu in QBOA for a user? You can add a new user. You can see the user status and track the user's Pro Advisor certification and their expiration dates. So add a new user, see their status, and then look at their certification and expiration dates. Who would have access to a specific client's note? Any team member assigned to that client. Because remember, it says once you've assigned to them, they have access to all the information. How does one update the lead for the client from the client's menu in QBOA? You would select the filter option and then select edit lead. All right, client requests. To create a client request, follow these steps. 1, select create client request from the work menu. 2, then from the create request drawer, add the client, a descriptive title, the due date, and any details the client might need to know. To add a document, you upload it from the document sections. To send an email notification to the client, you would leave a notify client slider on, or otherwise, if you didn't, you would turn it off. And then you would select done and share. The client request then appears along the projects and tasks in the work menu. On the other end, clients can see your request in the My Accountant tab in their QBO account. To ensure they don't miss anything, they can sort requests by due dates. So you would select Manage Templates from the work menu. So if we want to do a reoccurring project, you would Manage Template from the work menu. Then from the template screen, you would create template. You would edit the project as usual and add as many tasks as needed. Slide the repeat on and adjust dates as needed. When done, select Save Template. So we're looking at what you can do inside the work menu if you're kind of lost. So we talked, it kind of went over a lot, and I didn't want to go in depth because I go over a lot of this in the advance. So where we're at here is in the work menu. So first in the work menu, you could do client requests. Another thing you could do in the work menu is set up reoccurring projects. I go over this in detail in advance, so I'm not going to go over it in detail here. I just took a quick screenshot that they have there and showed, here's the repeat slider, and you would need to turn it on if you wanted to set up a reoccurring project. To do that, you would select Managing Templates, and then create a template and edit it. So here's the type of questions you might see, and I only saw 2, so that's why I didn't go in detail at all in that, because we're going to go in detail again when we do the advanced, which I'm going to do payroll next and then advanced. Which statements about creating a client request in QBOA are true? A document request appears in the client's QBOA company in the My Accountant menu, and a document request notification can be sent via email by selecting Notify Client. What is the correct process for setting up a recurring project for the same client? You would create a new project, and then you would use that repeat slider, turn it on, and then make sure you set the frequency and duration. All right, accountant tools, another topic that we're going to go greatly in depth in the advanced, so I kind of just gave you a snapshot. So here is a list of the accountant tools, and I kind of gave you a short little description there on them. When you're reviewing a client's book, so the only accountant tool that they really focus on in this section in the Pro Advisor is reclassifying transactions. So when you're reviewing, and closing books. So reclassifying transaction and closing books. When you're reviewing a client's books, you may find transactions that were incorrectly categorized. This could have happened because the client didn't understand which account to assign those transactions to. And in some cases, you might find a large number of transactions that need to be reclassified. Correcting these transactions individually could take a long time and be tedious. So they came up with the reclassifying transaction tools that allows you to reclassify large batches of transactions in one go, saving you considerable time and effort. You can use the tool to reclassify transactions by account, and if the client has the relevant tracking feature turned on, by class and location. So how do you get there? You go to your accountant tool, which you find on the top of your QBOA account, and then this comes up. You have your quick links, and then your 4 accountant main tools: reclassifying transaction report options, write-off inventory, and ProConnect Tax Online. The other thing we're going to look at other than recurring transaction is closed books. Those are the 2 that but we're going to go over all of this in depth in advance if you choose to take that. So this tool is accessible from the Accountant Tool tab. There is an interactive tutorial in the training section on the reclassifying transaction screen. There are some limitations to this. You can change the payment account, a bank or credit card, for expenses. You can't change the account for inventory adjustments because they're connected to your inventory shrinkage and asset accounts. You can change the expense account for billable expenses, but not the income account for related income transactions. The restrictions: transactions that don't contain a customer name can't be reclassified to accounts receivable, and transactions that do not contain a vendor name cannot be reclassified to accounts payable. And then these account types cannot be, and here are the reasons for them if you want to take a quick snapshot of that and put that in your notes. And here are two questions that they have, or a few questions actually. Where would you go to review your client's expense account to see if any transactions have been miscategorized? You'd go to the reclassification or reclassifying transactions from the accountant tool. So there's a few questions, and I just kind of threw them or reworded them in a few ways because you'll see it on the next page. Kind of the same questions repeated. What are the limitations of the reclassifying transaction tools? I just put them here. I don't know, they might have one or two. They might change the wording around a little. Just have them. And then I also gave you remember the restrictions too. So I don't know if they have a question, but have them all in your notes. Which accountant only tool enables you to categorize a large batch of transactions in only a few clicks for any subscription level? That's reclassifying transaction. Which 3 fields can be found in the reclassification? Now remember I told you they have that tutorial. You might want to do that and you'd be able to see this. So they have the account type, data range, and transaction type. It shows you each section in depth and what you can do in each one. And the last question: an accountant user can access and begin reclassifying transactions in what area? Again, accountant tools and reclassify transactions. Book review. Month-end procedures. Reviewing the books regularly helps keep the books tidy and up to date so that clients can get an accurate view of their finances and make the right decisions. The Book Review Center, which used to be called month-end procedures, that's why I have that here in the parentheses for those who might have, been working with QBO for quite a long time. You put it in the parentheses. Sometimes we just get used to certain terminology, but now it's book review. The center helps carry out period end reviews by pulling all the tasks together into a single place and listing transactions with potential issues. To start reviewing the books, select Book Review from the left-hand navigation of your client's company file. Note that this menu option is only available to admin users accessing company files via the QBOA, and that clients users do not see it. So the Book Review Center has 5 main tabs that take you through performing a periodic cleanup, solving issues, reconciling accounts, reviewing financial statements, and even creating report packages. So in the training section, they go over each one in depth. Out of all the things I cover, this is the one that I can say they go greatly over, the book review. So that's why I put over here several interactive tutorials. So I guess you have to scroll up. So there's several interactive tutorials where they start off with each one. This one's setup. So they first explain, if you click here, it'll say, oh, if you don't see the setup tab, you can click down on the cleanup and access the setup tab. And when you click on each tab as you scroll down, you can click in each section and it tells you in depth what each section represent, what it shows, and so on. So this is what it looks like, and you would just click on each one. So I really encourage you to do it. I can't possibly give you all the notes. It's really advisable to go to the training section because they go over it in depth and have great, because there's quite a few questions on this, and I've given you several samples here. So hopefully that should be enough, but if not, make sure you get to that training section and write some notes down there. So the first tab in the bank review section is the setup tab. It provides the checklist and tools for your client's needs to review and clean up the company information, settings, balances, chart of accounts, and bank accounts. This step is vital as it helps to identify any discrepancies or irregularities. This also is the option to resolve minor issues with an adjusting journal entry if appropriate. The next stage in the book review process is to take care of any problematic transactions. That's in the transaction review tab. It automatically finds errors such as incomplete expenses and allows you to categorize transactions that the review identifies. Once you've dealt with all the transactions that had issues, the next step is to ensure that all the accounts are reconciled. So that would be the account reconciliation tab. And that shows you the current status of accounts and the number of unreconciled transactions. The final is the review tab, the final review tab, and it prompts you to investigate unusual or unexpected balances and review the the financial statements for accuracy. And then the last one is the wrap-up tab, and that allows you to prepare reports, create and send report packages, close the books, and even create your own additional to-do checklist. Now, again, like I said, there's an interactive tutorial on all of these tabs, and they step you through literally each section explaining it. It's important to do that for these questions, because I have quite a few questions and sample questions and answers, but I might miss some. So if you want to have good notes in this section, make sure you go to that training section. Tracking progress in the clients list. The progress tracker icons in nearly all of these sections in the Book Review Center make it easy to mark the status of each step in the book review process. However, the bookkeeping tab in your QBO client list also helps to give an overview of the book review status for all your clients. So in there you see setup, the tab, setup, transaction review, account reconciliation, final review, and wrap up. Again, I can't stress this enough. There's a lot to cover in this section, and they have that great interactive tutorial for you to go over it. But I do have some questions here for you, and hopefully this will be enough notes if you don't get a chance to go to the training section. Here are some of the questions. What can be done to see the setup tab in the book review? So remember, I was just saying in the interactive tutorial, that's the first thing that you see is the setup section. And you would see from the cleanup, there's a drop down next to the book review heading, and it says cleanup, and you would select that. You would select cleanup, and then the setup tab will then appear if it does not appear right away. When might you use the setup screen in the book review? When recording beginning balances in a new QuickBooks Online company, and when you must make adjustments to force the books to balance. I took that word for word from the tutorial. So another question, what 2 tasks can be performed from the setup tab in the client's book review? Verify the chart of accounts has the correct industry and entity specific accounts, and identify any accounts that have, hi, sorry, my cat's trying to get my attention. Verify the chart of accounts have the correct industry and entity specific accounts, and then identify any accounts that have had no activity in the last 90 days. And they say there, they do that so that you can, get rid of any inactive, I'm not get rid of, but, make accounts inactive that you're not currently using. All right, here's another question. Which 2 statements are true about the open balance adjustment area of the setup tab in the book review? It could be used to enter beginning balances in a new company, and it can be used to verify that beginning balances from a prior period haven't changed since the last period the tool was used. And using book review, what are the 3 workflow tabs in the book review center? That is transaction review, account reconciliation, and final review. A few more. Which are the areas found under the open issue section from the transaction review tab? So the areas are uncategorized. I just put them all there. So your question might have, 2 or 3 of these. Just have all of them in your notes. So here are all the areas that you can see. Uncategorized transactions, transactions without payees, undeposited funds, and unapplied payments. What are 3 of the stages in book review? Transaction review, account reconciliation, and final review. So obviously that question was asked a few different type of ways. And here are the last 2 questions. What statement is true about the additional items in the book review? So each tab has additional items. And when you go down to the bottom and you click on it, like remember I told you it's an interactive, it'll list the different things that you could do within that section. So the additional items list can include a hyperlink to an outside source. So one of them, their example was a reconciliation report. So I said you can have a hyperlink to an outside source like the reconciliation report to view uncleared transactions. So if you're doing that reconciled section, you might have that link to that report. And then also the second thing that they talk about is you can also create and add additional items in the to-do checklist area. What 4 things can be done in the wrap-up tab, that last tab in the book review? Prepare reports, send report packages. By the way, I just wrote everything. So I don't know if it's going to have 1 or 2, 3, or all 4. It's prepare reports, send report packages, close the books, and then create that additional to-do checklist in the additional items area that we were just talking about. So in that last area, you can create an additional to-do checklist. So the last thing we're going to talk about is year-end procedures, closing the book. So QBO allows you to close your client's book at any frequency you prefer. They say that because some companies like to actually close their books on a monthly basis. You can set a closing date or even a password to help prevent changes after you close the book. Any changes made to the company file after you close the book will be logged. You can run an exception to the closing date report to see those changes. Before you can close the book, you need to reconcile all bank and credit card accounts, substantiate all bank balance sheet account balances. In other words, look for things other than bank and credit card accounts, for example, loan balances or asset values on the balance sheet, and review the values on each row of the profit and loss report and ensure they're correct for the period being reviewed. Closing the books. So QBO has a built-in tool that allows you and your clients to close their books. You can access this tool in several ways. The most straightforward way, if you have QBOA account, is going to your accountant tools, and down here you have close books. But you can also close your books from the book review screen that we just talked about. Both options take you to the advanced tab of accountant settings. From there, you can start the process to close the book. So you're going to go to your gear icon accountant settings, or you'll be in your gear icon accountant settings, advanced tab, accounting section, enable editing so that you can use the close the book slider to start the process. Then you're going to set the closing date. It can be the current date, although typically it's at a period end, so maybe the last day of the month if you're doing it monthly, or the last day of the year if you're doing it yearly. To protect the books with a password, you would select Allow Changes after viewing a warning and entering password option from the dropdown. This prevents unauthorized users from making changes. Note that users with admin access or access to the company file via QBOA can change the closing date and password. But you can give almost any type of user the password. You just want to have to put that in their permission settings. So you're going to enter and confirm the password and then select Save and Done. Who can set a closing date password? So who can set it? To set it, it can only be the primary admin or the company admin, including the accounting user. They can set, change, or remove a closing date or change the password. What should you and your clients consider when setting a closing date? It's best to create or update a closing date when your client is fairly certain that all their daily transactions for that period have been entered. The closing period also applies to non-posting transactions such as estimates and purchase orders. Reconciliations can be conducted in closed periods without having to enter a password. Can you change a transaction after the closing date? Yes, any user that has the correct permission and access to the password if you made one can edit or delete a transaction after the closing date and after the books have been closed. In this situation, QBO will do two things. They will display a warning asking the user to enter the closing date password, and then if that's inputted incorrectly, then it will log the change in the exception to closing date report. So the exception to closing date report lists all the changes made to transactions before and including the closing date, and any made after the books were closed. The report allows you to track if any changes are made, regardless of whether the books are password protected or not. Where could you find the exception to closing date report? Once you've set the closing date, you can access the report through Report Center in the For My Accountant section. Note, if there's no closing date set, then there's no exception to closing date report. So the closing date must be set in order for that feature to be activated. You'll only see details in the report when somebody edits a transaction dated before your closing date. If the report shows nothing, so the report will still come up, but it'll show nothing, that means no transactions were changed by any users in the company during that period. When you want to change an expense amount for closing. So they give you an example in training where it says, well, what happens, you've closed your books, but you need to change a certain amount. So it's an expense. So we're going to go to the expense center. We're going to change the amount of the transaction. What's going to happen? A pop-up window, a warning pop-up window is coming up that we just talked about a second ago. It's going to say, are you sure you want to do this because it's closed? And then if it's yes, you're going to have to enter the password that was set to protect the account. And then you're going to click yes. Now, you would go to the report center, and in the For My Accountant section, that's where you select the exception to closing date, and that report now will show the audit history window with the details of the edit you just made to expenses. That's how it works. Employees and contractors. We go in depth when we do payroll, which will probably be the next section I go over. If the client has paid any employees or subcontractors within that year, they're going to need to make sure that they submit the following forms on their pay. W-2 for employees and 1099 for contractors. The business owner, client, should send these forms to the relevant individuals by the end of January. The other thing they discuss in training is mileage. So another task you could do at the end of the year is create a journal entry to record the mileage expense, as QBO does not do this automatically. So this is something an accountant or a business owner would need to do. IRS guidelines require specific information to substantiate deductible automobile expenses, such as vehicle type, date placed in service, and the mileage. This used to be a certification question, but I actually think they moved it over to the payroll certification, so they took it out of, but it's good to have in your notes anyway, just in case. So again, you need to know the vehicle type, the date placed in service, and the mileage. And then mileage is broken up into total mileage, business, commuting, and then personal. If your client uses the mileage tracker throughout the year, then it's really easy to be able to get that information. You'll also need to check the calculated mileage, look for the vehicle changes, like if there was any bought or sold within the year. View all the recorded trips, ensuring none are left unreviewed, and view managed vehicles. So here's some questions you'll see, and this is the last section. How can you find the exceptions to closing date report? You go to your reports and you go to For My Accountant section. If you set a closing date with the password, can an office manager that has standard access make changes? If so, how would you track any changes they made in the closed period? Yes, because if you gave them the password, so if they know the password, they can make changes. And then any changes would be flagged in that exception to closing date report. Why might an accountant user not see the exception to closing date report in the QBO company? The closing date has not been set. And so that was accountant user. They have another one just like that for a client. Why wouldn't a client not see the exception for closing date? Well, because there was no closing date set. If there's no closing date set, there's no exception to closing date report. How can you record mileage expense at the end of the year? By creating a journal entry. And what two forms related to employees and contractors do you need to make sure you file at the end of the year and send out by the end of January? W-2 and 1099. So this ends section 5 and the last section to the Pro Advisor. The next section I'll be covering is payroll. All right, thanks for watching.